It's time for Respect the Process, a short chat about commercial filmmaking. Here's your host, director Jordan Brady.
Well, thank you, Helen. You know what, Helen? You bring the energy and vibe of summer in your intro read, and I want to say I appreciate you. You always put a little something different on each one every week, so thank you. Listeners, it is the 16th of July, 2024. We have a great episode. I went over to Signature Post, one of the top sound houses, audio post houses here in Los Angeles, and I spent just a wonderful morning chatting with Dawn Redman, Larry Benjamin, and Tim Hoogenakker. So 4 of us talking on a soundstage while Mixmaster Michael Miller, an ADR mixer, was in the booth putting this whole comp together. So I know the last couple of episodes were remnant interviews from my old studio at the Santa Monica Airport, soon to be a pickleball court. And I experimented with a shotgun mic. I don't know if I even embarrassed myself in front of these professionals with this, but I was getting bleed from my handheld mic, and I was bleeding over to the shotgun mic with the guest. And Scott Dodoro from Local Boy, who was on last week, has been sending me different AI tools and filters. Like, he's got a real keen ear. And other people have commented, and this one's going to sound great. We've aired the last of the interviews from the old place with my shenanigans trying to figure it out. And now this will be a good palate cleanser, because Signature Post, the way they just had the 4 of us talking, is wonderful. So we talk about their careers and experiences in audio post-production, their perspectives on respecting the process. We get into one of my favorite shows, Ozark. I think we talk about Paisley Park. We talk about Poker Face, Game of Thrones, all these big shows that go through Signature Post. So, and special thanks to Dawn for making it happen. This is not an ad. You know what this is? This is a public service announcement that I'm going to do for my friends that make commercials, that want to break into commercials, and my friends at SpecBank.com, because SpecBank is the world's only resource for over 1,000 spec scripts that you can shoot for your real Ms. Director, Mr. Director, all professionally written by working agency creatives. Mention Respect the Process when you sign up, and they'll refund your first payment, which I think is $10, $12, $15. I don't even know. Check out specbank.com. That's SPEC bank.com. Shoot smarter with SpecBank. Now, they offered to sponsor the show. And I refused. And I've been telling people that come to boot camp and the retreat, go to SpecBank, because an actual copywriter she does this for a living. She's writing a script, and, the client played it safe, so they bought another one. And what are you going to do with this script? So if it's for Campbell's Soup and they went with the down the middle one, you want to make an edgy one to cut through the clutter when you make your spec spot. All of a sudden you think you're a copywriter? Maybe you are. But why not go to specbank.com? No, Helen. SpecBank is totally different website. But you actually do get a discount if you mention Respect the Process at SpecBank. Magic Mind, that's the elixir I drink every morning, keeps me focused, helps me maintain the flow state. And the long-term effects have been super duper helpful. So go to magicmind.com/Jordan Brady. Use the code JB20 and you'll save some money. Okay, so before I tell you about the Filmmaker Retreat, and if you want to just skip ahead to the interview, I get it. I talk too long in these intros, right? I did a post on the TikTok where I wrote like a promo for the retreat, the Filmmaker Retreat. By the way, Helen, only 3 spots left out of 20, okay? And I post my read, like I say on my phone, I'm doing this for the retreat. It's a test. What do you guys think? Well, professional voiceover artiste John Worsham who I've never met in the IRL, takes my copy and reads it and puts dramatic music, and it touched my heart that he did that. Now he is auditioning for a top secret commercial that I am casting as we speak. That's how it works. You do me a solid, I'm going to pay that favor back. And I hope he gets it. Now, the agency and the client have to sign off and stuff like that. John is a wonderful actor. I did a deep dive. What if he was some psycho? But he's not. He's John Worsham. But you know what, Helen? Let's play it. Play it right now.
Are you ready to ignite your creative flame amidst Joshua Tree's mystical landscape? Join us at our 3rd annual Filmmaker Retreat. Define your voice. Embark on a transformative journey. With workshops meticulously crafted to empower you as a storyteller. From mastering the art of pitching and refining directing techniques to crafting your unique brand. This retreat is your canvas to define and amplify your voice.
Wasn't that great? I mean, I don't have the music and everything, but... So if you're interested in the Filmmaker Retreat, Joshua Tree, our 3rd annual, go ahead and DM me or sign up. I would sign up because it's going to sell out. And we will do an onboarding call, and I'll tell you all about it. And I'll learn your dreams and wishes and goals for the retreat so that I can craft the experience for all the participants. Super duper excited. Lastly, this is not a plug. This is just good, solid advice. Fix it in prep. I've said it for years. Prep is cheap. And make a check-in Zoom call part of your process. I was wondering what the creative team was thinking about. I had a concern over some script changes that I wasn't quite understanding. It should have been simple, but they were getting too long, and I said to the line producer, can you just set up a Zoom call? We jumped on a Zoom call, maybe 17 minutes. Everything was clear. And I said to them, if you ever have any questions for me, let's jump on a Zoom if we need to. If we can solve it by email, totally cool. But why not use a pesky Zoom? Because communication is the key to collaboration. Successful collaboration, anyway. So earlier today, going into the casting, the creatives wondered, because it's our first time working together, how do you run the session, Jordan? And I had to break the news that I wouldn't be there with a baton leading the actors. We have a professional casting director. But, I was very transparent about that. I'm going to watch the tapes. You're going to watch the tapes. And when I say tapes, I mean you click on files. And then I offered yet another pesky Zoom before callbacks. I said, why don't we compare our lists before we go into callbacks? So that's my tip. Incorporate Zoom check-ins as you go. Okay. Let's get to the interview. Huge thanks to Tim, Larry, and especially Dawn for setting this up and being on the show and making it sound all purty. Let's start with Dawn. If you could introduce yourself, tell us what you do here.
Yes, I'm Dawn Redman, and I am the Director of Scheduling here at Signature Post in Santa Monica. So today we're on the beautiful Santa Monica ADR stage. We also have a Burbank location, but since this is our hood, I wanted you to come and see it in person, and I figured this is a comfortable, nice setting for everybody, so we're really glad that you could come.
Of course. Now, Dawn, you and I have known each other a while.
I mixed one of your films.
I want to say it was my wife's film, Free to Be Me.
We did...
I Am Battle Comic.
I Am Battle Comic. Yeah, that was the documentary.
Terrible name for a documentary. Very confusing, doesn't say what it is. But the mix is so wonderful. And that movie was shot with a camcorder from Best Buy, a 4K Sony that I didn't even use those extra 2K. I just wanted to have it, the picture as easy as possible to, because I went overseas. I went to the Middle East and I was using these little cards. But the mix had to be great because the sound is more important than the picture, in my opinion.
Thank you. Hey, I agree.
We concur, yes. I think a user can overlook a picture that's maybe not pristine, but if you can't hear the sound, and if it's off mic or if it's overly reverberant, that belies good filmmaking, I think. You can't hear the story.
You can't engage with it without the right sound.
Right.
Right. The aural sensation and journey that one goes on in a film, you can settle in visually to an aesthetic.
Right.
And you can have now, especially now, the young people in their mixed media, but the sound has to be. It's just I'm making a hand gesture that no one on a podcast can see. It just has to be consistently good.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's our jobs and we'll introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm Larry Benjamin. I'm a re-recording mixer.
Larry Benjamin, a re-recording mixer.
Correct.
What is that?
My job is to take pre-recorded material. I happen to mix dialogue and music, and my mix partner, Tim, will introduce himself momentarily. We work together. Tim handles anything with the effects. I handle dialogue and music. And my job is to take disparate, edited dialogue and make it sound like it was shot smoothly and continuously at the same time. From different,
cut to cut.
Cut to cut. So smoothing out cuts, making things sound like they're recorded at the same time. The perspective, the equalization, the timbre, any noise, any sounds that are extraneous and distracting, get rid of those, kind of clean the track, make it consistent in terms of the levels, compression. If someone has a very, hi, Chris, certainly a little sibilant sound like that, we would maybe de-ess that, or...
What if that was part of the character?
Could be intentional.
No de-whistler.
Yes, but we want to process sound so that it doesn't sound processed, but it is smooth to the ear. So that's my job.
Wow, that is great, Larry. Thank you. Because a lot of people think re-recording means you're bringing in the actors for ADR or looping or dubbing. And back to Dawn, a lot of people think ADR is either additional dialogue recording or they think it stands for...
automatic dialogue replacement.
AI dialogue recording.
Or just automatic
dialogue
Or
recording.
looping is another word from the old holdover days when they would literally run a loop of film.
Why do they call it loop? That's why
there was a loop of film, 35 millimeter mag film, that they would have that running at the same time as a loop of the actual picture running on 35 millimeter print, and they would continuously record in a loop fashion the actor re-recording that line, saying that line that, let's say, was marred by an airplane going overhead or a performance change, and it would just keep recording on a piece of loop film. And that term stuck around very much like icebox for refrigerator. It's a holdover.
That's a great... See, we're getting a little history here on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, Tim.
Yeah, I'm Tim Hoogenakker. I'm a re-recording mixer as well. I'm with Larry. Now, with Larry, we're a team where as he handles dialogue and music, I handle the effects. So Foley, backgrounds, effects like, car door slams, explosions.
Get that cat out of here.
Get that cat out of here. All that stuff. So all those sound effects that you hear that are with the music and the dialogue. And then he and I then do a delicate balance together. And we play in terms of each other, like balancing all those different elements, as to what's appropriate for the scene at the time. So it might be more birds. And then we might exchange it more. We're going to go more music here on this scene. And the next scene might be, okay, let's get back to more of the explosions and the footsteps and things like that. And it's just a fine, delicate balance. This is why you need two mixers on some shows, because it's balancing all that together. So I can just focus on the effects, and he can just focus on the dialogue and music.
Do most,
that makes sense.
And when we say shows,
features and television.
I was going to say, because
Yeah.
When I go to your IMDb and Larry's IMDb, there's a lot of television shows and features versus commercials, which I'm wondering if they even have the budget. They're lucky to have a re-recording session at all sometimes. So with television and movies, with movies there's a even bigger team. But with a show, can it be pared down to the two of you?
For mixing, yes, but we have a team behind us in editorial. Kind of like, think of us like chefs. We're the final, we get to kind of cook the food, but all the food has to be prepped like a sous chef. And that would be our editorial department. So
we have a dialogue editor, sound effects editor.
Yes.
In fact, oftentimes on the stage, he'll have a dialogue editor kind of behind him on the stage, and I might have a sound effects editor sitting near me where they're cutting away behind the scenes, adding things. A lot of changes, especially in a television show or a feature, it's long form format. So as we're moving along, we might find that the director might say, oh, you know what, can we get a whole different set of car sounds here, for example? And so while he's mixing the dialogue and music and I'm doing certain things, the editor can be cutting all that in the background and then I can add all those things in while he's working. Because there's a lot of things changing on the fly as we're mixing.
Yeah,
and so it's a long process. Whereas like a commercial, for example, is 30-second, 60-second spots, where you have a little bit more leeway as far as we can stop and put all this in because it's 30 seconds.
Right, it's
But
a
2-hour
digestible workload.
Yeah, it was 2-hour film. It's a different story.
What is your favorite medium?
I do a lot of music shows, a lot of music, live concert films, for example.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but between the favorite of that, wow, it's like music is kind of up there with me. But it's funny because film and television, it's kind of, they're almost overlapping in a sense. You look at a show like Game of Thrones, for example. It's kind of like just a film, really.
Yeah.
Every episode.
Yeah, they really are like feature films, just a whole series of them. So it's kind of the lines are blurring. They're connecting more now, as opposed to it was 20 years ago.
That's right. It used to be very siloed,
Yeah.
and it would be small screen, big screen, and it was similar processes but different time and budget constraints. And now, as Tim said, there are times when, for instance, Amazon or Netflix will have a film that will have a limited theatrical release and then a longer life, an evergreen life, if you will, on the platform. So it has to kind of serve multiple masters. And many of the same people that would traditionally have just done films are now doing high-end streaming television shows and vice versa. So you're right. It's much more blurring of the lines. Yeah. The time constraints are they're given more time to do a high-end streaming television show instead of 2 days for a network show. Now you're given 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, which is now approaching that of a film. And films which traditionally took months, unless it's a big tentpole production like a Marvel movie, it's going to have maybe a lesser amount of time. So they're very much overlapping for sure. If you look at the Venn diagram, there's a lot of shaded area.
Okay, so if you're mixing a mid-budget film, not a tentpole,
okay,
and it's going to be in theaters first with the surround sound and the Dolby and the right. That's more of a Netflix. I was trying to go for THX, but
we
I think you'll figure it out. And then after that first week or two, it's going to be on Amazon or Netflix. I say Amazon, Dawn, because it's British way to say it.
Classy.
And it irks my wife a little bit that I do it.
And then you intentionally do it.
Tesla, I say. just to
with a Z.
to spice it up. Yeah, with a Z.
Tesla. Yeah,
Elon says
I
it like that.
So do you lean, do you go, you know what, a week in the theater, let's really mix this for the streamer.
That's a great
knowing
question.
that everyone has a pretty big TV with good sound now, but that's different than the theatrical experience.
It is.
So I'll tell you, like a lot of features that I've worked on will a lot of times start with a theatrical film, like a theatrical Dolby Atmos release, for example. Start with that, get the theatrical mix going, very dynamic. The explosions hit hard, and because you have to move a lot more air in a large room, in a large theater, your speakers are 50 feet away from you. You have to hit you harder. So when you get into a home theater environment, now you're going to make a version for streaming or for television. So if it's going to be for Netflix or Amazon or something like that, you're going to do a near. Yes, I worked on that. And then you got to do a near field version where you're just going to take that theatrical,
near field.
Yes. Call it a near field. Yes, like a home theater streaming version.
Like we used to do in an indie film, we do a 5.1 for maybe one theater in the country with your indie film or a festival. But then you did a stereo mix that you had to.
That and not only that, the level that it's mixed at. So as Tim said, just to piggyback off him, if you mix a feature film, it's generally 85 decibels is the level that's prescribed, and that is to move that volume of air. That's the level that is consistent. That's the level of playback, all things being equal, best case scenario. Television, we mix at 79 or 81 or 82 decibels, so it's a different level. And the reason is you want a more limited dynamic range. If you listen to a feature film that hasn't had a near-field mix that Tim's talking about, it's frustrating at home. You're remixing it with the remote control or resorting to subtitles. Because
if you're home, if you're riding your remote control and you're one of those, and we've all done that.
Oh,
then that's a lot of that.
A million times.
Yeah,
and my wife's like,
is,
why in this scene does it drop down here? Like when it's just dialogue, we have to turn it up.
Yeah. And my wife, it's funny, my wife listened to her at home. She gets frustrated. She watched TV and I could hear her mumbling. She goes, frickin' mixers. Riding the volume knob.
To try. Yeah. Yes, but that is part of the reason is a theatrical film or film that has been mixed in a very dynamic fashion in a large room. If you don't do a near-field pass with a more limited dynamic range, it's like listening to classical music in your car on the freeway. It's you know what I'm saying?
That's a good analogy.
It's really just too dynamic. So the road noise is going to kill kind of those soft, subtle spots. So that's you remixing it with the remote control. So a commercial conversely, to bring it around to what you're doing, is generally a kind of full volume the entire duration of that commercial, right? So full volume, it's not going to have the lower subtleties necessarily. I mean, it's selling a product, selling a service, what have you. It's going to be a more bombastic, if you looked at the waveform, it's not going to have as many dynamic peaks and troughs. It's going to be more of like a piece of lumber, if you will, or a toothpaste, if you will, a little fade up, or that kind of thing.
Toothpaste and lumber, interchangeable metaphors
The
for
shape of the
sound in a
waveform.
commerson, Larry.
Well,
That's
sorry.
some of your best material.
No,
right there,
I
gotta
apologize.
say.
I'm not imputing. I think commercials can sound fantastic. But the goal is to get that to cut so that you don't have to remix it.
Right.
It's very important that message and story is told clearly and concisely and dynamically.
What about the myth of commercials are mixed louder than TV? That's goes back to the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now we have I'm sure you've heard the Calm Act, where they have
Yeah.
where
you
it's
can't
supposed
do
to be
that.
a regulated
Right.
level that we're supposed to sit at. We're supposed to mix at. It's a level. It's like a dialogue listening level, and of course earlier on in you'll say the 90s or even early 2000s, where your commercials would be 10 dB louder than what
Significantly
you were
louder.
watching, and that's where Congress got involved and created the Calm Act, and that's where it was supposed to, and I say this with bunny quotes, I'm raising my fingers here, it's supposed to keep it more regulated between television and commercials, but it doesn't always work out that way because there's tricks to kind of get around that, but that's the idea, is to keep it more regulated. So
I love that the people have spoken and Congress represented us and brought it down a bit.
Yeah. Well, there were complaints that the broadcast television shows were surrounded by the ads that supported them. The ads were significantly louder, so people would complain. I'm blindsided if I go to the kitchen, all of a sudden this loud commercial comes on. Yeah. So the goal was to kind of normalize and have the program that the commercials were sandwiched in between. There was less of a disparity between that level and level of the commercial. And that was the goal. And now that we're on streaming, which often doesn't have commercials, unless you're referring to Hulu, streaming has its own set of deliverable guidelines. And the idea is, on the platform like Netflix, once you set a level, kind of a threshold, you shouldn't have to remix the platform. You should be able to set it and forget.
yeah, the theory behind it is supposed to stay
Consistent.
more regulated, more consistent. Yeah.
And then when I get the mixed masters, the finals of my commercials for my portfolio, as we say, or my reel, I often get the broadcast mix and the web mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what is the difference between? Because I listen and I have common ears.
Yeah.
They're not fancy ears like yours. I can't tell the difference really.
So if I may, the broadcast, so your broadcast mix will be, of course, obviously for broadcast, and that's usually it's at not to get too nerdy here, but a minus 24.
No, get nerdy.
Go minus 24 LKFS, is what they call it.
LPFS?
LKFS.
What's
And
LKFS? What's that mean?
So it's linear. It's a reading where it's got a certain number you have to match to. It's a decibel number you have to reach to, where dialogue sits at this certain number.
Gotcha.
And so that's for broadcast, for streaming. And the reason why it's at a certain number, so it leaves enough room for all the higher, dynamic stuff to fit with television. Whereas web content, if you're going to watch something on YouTube, it's going to be louder. It's going to print. Usually it's like minus, 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's actually going to print a little louder because, it's just so you can have, everybody's more regulated at a louder. So the short answer to your question then is, it's just going to be louder.
Yeah, there's no difference in the actual blend or the balance. It's simply the output. So, for instance, if you try to watch something that's mixed at 85 decibels, like a feature film on a laptop, you're literally cranking up your volume all the way up.
Yeah.
This web version of your commercial portfolio will allow the volume to not have to be cranked all the way to the top. So it's literally just that, the output.
So is it safe to say, pro tip for the listeners that are posting their short films and commercials on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and there's probably others, I don't know, go with the web mix?
That's probably the most appropriate for how the audience will consume that. Think about tablets, phones, maybe earbuds, earpods, something that has either a tiny little speaker. And at home, we mentioned earlier, you're consuming television on a television set. If you don't have a soundbar or system, a component system, unfortunately, you're listening to speakers that are often pointing at the wall or downward, or not as good as what we once had with that old box, standard def TV, where the speakers actually were facing you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We've kind of taken, as the picture quality has increased and the price has dropped tremendously.
Yes.
I went into Costco and saw an 84-inch television for $99.
How's that
kid.
possible?
I exaggerate for effect.
It was $199. No,
And Tim alluded to music, but Larry, you didn't answer your favorite medium.
I really enjoy, I think, streaming television. I like that storytelling format. I like the 10-episode arc, which is like 10 feature films.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that opportunity to have character development and the story told over that. Also, documentary films. I enjoy doing that. Tim has done a fair share of those, and I know you have a background in doing some of that as well, right?
The aforementioned I Am Battle comic, terrible name, by the way, but
But funny.
yeah, I love documentaries, and I think documentaries are a bit more forgiving.
Yes.
Right? The consistency of everything, but you still, even though the picture will forgive different sound environments, you still want a consistency
Exactly.
for the viewer's experience, the listener.
And I like that challenge of trying to take these disparate sources and intermingle them and know that you don't have to overly clean it. The rawness, if the picture's caught in a guerrilla filmmaking style, the audio can withstand being a little rough and tumble. And I don't know, I like that format. It's very good for storytelling.
What was fun about, just real quick about I Am Battle comic, I was filming comedians on stage in like big army barracks. We went to the Middle East to perform for the troops.
Oh, wow.
Comedy back when we had troops everywhere there. And I would take a line cut from the mic straight into this little Tascam, like it wasn't even a Zoom product. Like it was the old school Tascam, like a 2-track recorder. And then it had these little microphones. It looked like a stun gun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I forget the
Did it have
model.
two little mics that kind of went in and
XY
out?
pattern.
It's
Yeah,
called
it's
like
like
XY
flash
pattern.
recorder.
And I would go this way with it. I would spread them out. So I was recording that as sort of an ambient track, the line cut, and then the camera mic would get more crowd stuff. But we sweetened the crowd with, a laugh track.
Right.
To fill it, not to make the comedians funnier.
Yeah.
Like we didn't cheat any laughs.
Yeah, you're like filling in the gaps.
Fill in the gaps.
Like putty.
Putty. Is that the
Bathroom
technical?
spackle. Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, sure. Like you sure, Jordan, you can make up terms we use that we really
putty,
don't.
audio putty. No,
Audio putty. Have you ever said audio putty before?
Well, it's apropos, don't you think?
I've said
You're
I
avoiding
call it spackle.
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 Yes.
Audio
Either way.
spackle.
Audio spackle. Yeah,
it's just you're slopping
troweling
stuff
it
into
in
the pieces, in the
filling
holes.
it in the holes.
Yep.
You guys are funny.
It's funny, even
are a
on
team.
on the
Yes.
music side, just like you were talking about with a comedy series or a comedy show, you got editing crowd that's a art in itself. To get it just right, that is really difficult to get it to really sound natural, especially when a crowd is they're laughing and then it's a little fade out and tinkle afterwards.
Right, it's gotta titter
It's got to
out.
sound right.
Yeah.
But especially, and also music concerts, when I work on music shows, same thing with that. The crowd, when they all crowd, and then it has to sound natural. That follow out afterwards, if that doesn't sound natural, you go not buying it.
Yeah, you're right. And acoustically, it has to sound right. And the size of the crowd, getting that to be, not only accurate, but in the acoustic space, right? If it's indoors in a reverberant place, you don't want it to be, exterior without that, or you could fake it, I guess, by adding verb on it.
Yeah.
But having that sound authentic is probably what you were doing, filling the holes.
I want to say it's all of me with Alan King and comedian Alan King and Billy Crystal. Mm-hmm. They're adding laugh tracks, and it's a dark subject, but the who would be the sound effects editor is auditioning laugh tracks.
Yeah.
And Billy Crystal in the middle of the conversation goes, "That's it." And what? He goes, "That's the laugh we need, number 12 or whatever."
That is so
It's a
funny.
very funny scene.
I got my career started working in shows that had a laugh track. They actually had a person. It's a very specialized job.
Oh, I've
where
seen this.
You've
Yes,
seen this. Like,
it's
so Bob
amazing.
Lamazny, Bobby Douglas Jr., Alan Patapoft.
These are famous laugh
These are
track
famous. Yes. Matter of
people?
fact,
Yes.
Bobby Douglas Sr. invented the laugh machine for Lucy. And they used a format. It was like a kind of a 16 millimeter film loop. Going back to
back
loops.
to the loop. And was it called the Laugh Machine or
I don't know if I forget the actual
Laugh
name.
Track 5000?
I don't know the
Putty
model
machine?
number,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
it was
the putty,
but
laugh scalpel.
audio putty.
Last Spackle. Yeah, right.
Last Spackle 5000. Yes.
And the deluxe version.
It looked like almost like an adding machine. It had little colored numeric, keys that you would hit and trigger various loops of various laughs. And then he had a little kind of looked like an accelerator pedal for volume.
Wah-wah pedal.
Yeah.
He could ride the laugh.
He could ride the laugh. And then later there were digital versions of it that got reduced. Then it was carts, audio carts, and cassettes, and eventually digital.
I've seen this happen too before, and it's almost like a court reporter looking kind of thing. And but I remember when I watched this happen, it was they purposely kept all the knobs and the buttons with no lettering on it, so you can't really tell. It's only the operator knows what.
Very
it's doing.
proprietary.
Very proprietary.
Yeah, early on
they keep it really.
It's very secret. So this was funny.
That's their job security.
Disney MGM flew me down to Florida when they opened up their studio, and like this room, we have a window that goes to the control room.
The whole team is in there,
right? Hello there. All of the walls were double-sided, windows that you could be seen but not necessarily heard. So Bobby Douglas was down there sweetening the opening to the studio. It was Disney MGM, and he had a little cloak of magic cloth over, like a cape basically, over the laugh machine as he was changing out. They were called Mackenzies. That's the format, the 16-millimeter film loops. And he had the machine popped open and had the cloak off. And he looked up, and there's everybody looking in on the tour while he was trying to change out this proprietary machine. Everyone's like, snapping away. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's still an art. A lot of game shows. I used to mix shows like, Academy Awards packages, roll-in packages, or the American Music Awards. And while there was a live audience, he was firing away live spackle. Because where the audience may have heard the joke before, or maybe it was falling flat, he would enhance it live. And so I worked with him kind of in a non-live setting where we were sweetening packages that were rolled in.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Interesting.
Well, what a great history nugget that you just dropped on us. Dawn.
Jordan.
How did you get started into sound? And are there a lot of female mixers, re-recording artists? Tell me. Yeah,
well, actually, one thing I'm asked quite often is, what is audio post? It's this magical, mystical world that I don't even think my parents really understood what I was doing my entire career, because it's sort of a niche, right? Like, if you don't know someone who's already in it, a lot of times kids will ask me, what is it? How do I get into it? What are the actual jobs? And I think the good news is I usually tell people, you don't have to go to school for this. Honestly, if that's not in your budget, just, try to get in somewhere. And my story is a little different because I started out as a musician, similar to Tim, who he came up at Paisley Park, right? Mm-hmm. Back in Minnesota. And I
have a question about that coming up.
Okay. I came out here as a musician, and, after not knowing anything about the audio post world either, I realized, I need to get the real job. I need to get a 401k going, and music is such a crapshoot. I don't know if this is going to work out.
What kind of music were you doing? That's important to the...
It was kind of funky, kind of rock, like Sheryl Crow-ish, maybe I would say. I was a singer-songwriter, but after touring and playing and writing and not making money and only spending money, you get to the point where I think I need the real job. So I got really lucky. I went to a place called POP Sound, which was really a huge audio post studio back in the day.
Are they still in business?
They got bought and sold, and they're no longer around.
Many times bought and sold.
Yeah, but luckily, the reason I ended up here is because Tim was also at POP. And
I used to
Eric
go there
Beam,
all
our
the
chief
time.
engineer, who's sitting in the control room,
Miller.
he's from POP, and as is Michael Miller. So it ended up coming full circle. So I think...
that was like the place.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
Larry was there all the time, so
commercial-wise.
he was
I
kind of
felt like I worked there. I
felt
felt
like you worked
there.
First place on the west side really to open up that does audio post. And
But was there any connection to your doing music to ending up at POP? Or that's just coincidental?
I got really lucky, which is why I tell people, talk to as many people as you can, try everything, knock on doors, go in person. Someone told me, there's a building over there and they have those big mixing boards, and I know you know your way around a mixing board from being in the music studio. So I went to POP thinking it was a music studio. And when I asked, who can I give my little paper resume to, they pointed me into operations, and a gentleman named Doug Clark was there, and he looked at my resume and he said, "Oh my gosh, you're from Wisconsin? I'm from Wisconsin. You're hired." And that's how I got my foot in the door. And I then learned after they hired me, oh, this isn't even a music studio. This is what's called audio post-production. And I tell people all the time, it's a great, if you want to pivot, you just have to get in the door, head down, work hard, start at the bottom, work your way up, but people will give you chances. And
you're not shy. I just remembered, the last place
really.
I saw you was like in the grocery store parking lot. Like at the Ralph's or something. I was like, Dawn, you're Jordan, and when are we going to do the podcast? Because we've been talking about, I wanted to interview you for at least 6 years.
Oh, and I've been such a big fan too. It's just timing, right? You're busy, then I was busy, and then, working it into the schedule when our room here wasn't booked and we could slide it in. I'm glad it all finally came together. Yeah.
And wow, did it come together. I mean, look at where we are.
Here we are. So
this is the reason it took so long to be in this studio. So you get in at POP, you're in the operations end of things.
Oh, no, I wish. I started out at the front desk. That was it. Back in the day, you had to take whatever you could take. And I always tell other friends the same thing, tell your kids, just start at the front desk, start as a runner, start at some kind of entry-level job just to get your foot in the door.
That is so important. A lot of people, especially the entitled, I'm not saying they're young, but I'm implying that. They think, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait till I can enter here, which a lot of times is an unrealistic expectation of both yourself and the business. If you get your foot in the door, you get a job doing anything.
Exactly.
In the business, even if it's tangential to the actual position that you want.
Yeah, it might be exploratory.
Exploratory.
I'm in the door now. Yeah. What are these possible jobs? And that's how I learned. Oh, I saw what Larry and Tim do, and I thought, okay, I want to do that. Problem, there's no other girls doing that.
Right.
But I bided my time. I sat at the front desk, and then I went into a machine room. Then I became an assistant mixer with another gentleman. This is all in the commercial world, and I was lucky enough to work at a facility, and there aren't many that do this, that work on commercials and features under the same roof. So I had, eyes wide open. I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to sit with anybody who will let me sit with them, and eventually worked my way up. And because the commercial mixing chairs are so few and far between, I saw a pathway in the feature department that could move me up faster.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking the opposite.
So I slid over and ended up in the feature side.
What made features more of an opportunity? Because I would have thought it would have been like commercials with the turnover, like churning spots out. They'd need people and, hey, come look at this and come learn this way.
Well, that particular company, we had commercial mixers who'd been there a long time.
What was that called?
That was still POP Sound.
Oh, still POP.
Yep, that's where I started, and I stayed there for a long time. But what they used to call the long form department or the feature department was twice as big, and it worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you could get in there and learn faster and potentially move up. But same problem, I still had, I think it was 14 or 15 guys ahead of me that would probably all have to die before I could move up.
Did you ever consider poison or a vial of infection?
Well, where my lucky break came was one of the gentlemen.
Someone got sick.
He ended up moving away. His wife took a job in another state, and that was actually back in the operations department. So we're coming full circle here. I took a look at that and thought, you know what, I think I can get where I want to be faster by moving back onto the executive side of the audio post world. And also, honestly, sadly, people would say to me, oh, I don't think anybody's going to want to work with a female mixer. Are you worried about that? So I took that into consideration. Hey, if that means I'm going to be delayed by X amount of years waiting for people's minds to be wrapped around females can do this job as well, maybe I do scoot out and try something else. So the good news is now that's all changing, and now everybody's asking for female mixers. So I want to encourage the ladies out there, get into this industry, you know, explore audio post and work your way up. And the doors are
female mixers out there and editors, really good.
Yep. That was one of the things that attracted me to Signature is we have 2 amazing female mixers on staff, Alexandra Furman and Christina Wen, and we have a secondary, like a
Helen,
called a mix tech.
Get those ladies on the show. Use my calendar.
They're fabulous, amazing projects. And the mix tech, I guess, how would you describe mix teching? That's sort of like a first step towards becoming a mixer.
It's like an assistant mixer in a sense, Yep. Somebody who puts the room together, puts all the
file management
together.
and technical setup.
Yeah,
they have the best seat in the house because they sit in the back of the room, they watch the mix, and then they learn. They go, well, that's something I'll never do, or that's something I'll do in my repertoire. Like, it's the best seat in the house to do that.
Do people come in with a reel, like do they send you a WAV file or a short film or what? Unless they're from Wisconsin, how are they going to break into this industry as a mixer or some sort of apprentice?
Yeah, I think we've all had similar. I mean, I feel like most people, if you don't mind me feeling this, come from a musical background. So we're all either frustrated musicians, or we do it as a hobby, or it's fun. So we all have some kind of musical background, which helps.
I play the slide whistle.
There you go. Very nice. It is musical. But a lot of people will come in either in an entry-level position, be it like a tape library, or now they have drives, or you're setting up sessions, that kind of thing, or will come in as an assistant following maybe an internship at the facility, which leads to an assistant position.
But how do they even get the internship?
It's, I would say, grit, having persistence, calling facilities, getting your foot in the door. It's really just having gumption. People have contacted me via LinkedIn, dropping into my DMs and reaching out to me directly. Hey, I've noticed I'm a fan of this work or this show. Do you have 10 minutes I can bend your ear and get some advice? And people will reach out that way, social media, reaching out to someone on the website saying, hey, do you have an internship? Just being kind of pushy, a little bit of chutzpah, being gutsy and following up and being persistent. And if someone is persistent enough and they hang out enough, they can often, get a job that way, just in a very unorthodox way. It's not like, I want to be a banker, so I'm going to start at the bottom here and work your way up. It's everybody has their own unique path.
And personality fit with the team, I think.
Very much
must
so.
be
Huge.
super important.
I would say this is probably something that you deal with too on the set, right? I bet you have a way of working that's don't be a jerk and be a cool hang, right? Those kind of 2 big bullet points, I would think.
Don't be a jerk, and what was the second?
Be a cool hang.
Be a cool hang, yeah. Yeah, it's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
It's
Absolutely.
a vibe. And if you can't remain calm, I'm fond of saying the fish stinks from the head down.
Absolutely.
And if I freak out, the whole team is going to freak out.
Sure.
Yeah. And a story from last fall, my producer kept saying, it's going to rain Wednesday. It's going to rain Wednesday. And we're outside all day. And I was like, how do we know? It's 2 weeks away. And she was right, spot on. And she and the team prepared to have big 20 by 20 foot fly swatters, we call them, on condors, right, to protect us from the rain. And we had a little extra lighting in our package to compensate because we're playing this for sunny Arizona,
right?
And it's cloudy and raining. And it started to rain, and I had 2 filmmakers shadowing me on set, like that intern sitting in the back of the room.
Yeah.
And when it started to rain, we had planned to put things under like this canopy. Then we supplemented with our fly swatters. We pulled out the lights. We were dry. The lens is long enough that you don't really see the rain out under. That's not under this canopy where we're shooting. And it took a little extra time, like probably 45 minutes of just me waiting, telling stories, being entertaining, checking in on the team, watching things.
Yep.
And the compliment from the shadow directors was, you never lost your shit. Like, you didn't freak. And I go, well, what would that be like to the agency?
Right.
If
Yes.
I freaked out, the agency and client see the director freaking out because it's raining.
Right.
When we talked about the rain for a week, and it actually helped.
I was just going to say it probably had the converse effect so that they could see you problem solving and seeing being creative. Like, how do we
and
deal
not
with
just
this?
me personally.
Right, the team.
The
But you
team.
being
They
the
saw
leader
the
of the team.
team working, and that no one got freaked.
Yeah.
And we just went about it like it was our day, and it was personally a real confidence booster in my own ability to adapt, and the crew that I've been working with on and off for years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not only is it worked well at the time, but also they're going to remember that for the next shoot.
God
The
willing.
Next time.
Yeah.
Yes, on the next project.
Let's
you're
hire
gonna-
that guy.
They're
He
going to
dealt
go,
with
oh,
this."
those guys didn't freak out.
Let's hope it
use
rains.
them." Yeah, let's hope for
You
rain.
dealt with it well. Jordan, can I ask you a question?
Oh, the tables have turned. Larry, anything. I'm an open book.
So your family is very involved in your company and doing the same kind of thing. Obviously, they were exposed to this at you, a son that you mentioned, Ben, that's a DP, you have a daughter, your wife's involved. Did they all kind of hang around the set and kind of shadow you and see, did you just introduce them as you were kind of building your career, specifically, let's say in commercials or even other long form, and watch what you did and said, I want to do that?
My wife, Jeanette Godoy, is a talented writer-director, and we met on set. It was a showmance.
Aww.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We would, but not in a traditional sense, because we didn't really like each other at first.
Really?
But we still worked together, and we worked really well together. And then we fell in love. But she had expressed to me, because she came from a choreography background, and I have to tell everyone when I mention that it's just 30 years ago.
I already know what you're
This
gonna
week,
say, and I
30
love
years
it
ago
so
this
much.
week, the music video dropped that she choreographed, and it's by an artist named Sir Mix-a-Lot, and the song is Baby Got Back.
Of course.
So she
Who doesn't
invented
know that?
twerking.
Classic.
basically.
Unbelievable. Wow.
That's great.
That's a great anecdote.
So she wanted to direct after working on so many music videos and whatnot. And so I said, well, then you're going to direct. Let's get a spot. Let's shoot some stuff. And she just started getting her 10,000 hours shooting. And that was probably 14 years ago. And since then, she's done episodic, bunch of shorts, tons of commercials, went to Cannes and
Wow.
did her first feature 2 years ago.
Amazing.
So I didn't have any, I was just more of a cheerleader and facilitator. My sons, both my sons work with me, and I'm the luckiest man in the world. So Ben, I never forced any of them into this, but Ben is a talented director, a wonderful cinematographer, and will work. As we're recording this, he's a first AC pulling focus on a job. Like, he just wants to be on set, and I'm so proud of that. That's cool. Not poo-pooing. Well, now that I've directed, I'm not going to do anything to direct.
Yeah, right.
You know, well, but he DPs quite a bit for me now too.
That's got to be
It's,
very
it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And then Jake has been the rock of this podcast, because in the beginning I did it myself, and I would edit, and I would toil over taking out ums and ahs and things like that. Or a guest will, like, Dawn's going to email me tomorrow going, "Ooh, I didn't want to mention POP. Could you take out any time I said POP?" And I would toil over that. But now I go, "Hey, Jake, Dawn doesn't want to say," and he'll just do it.
That's great.
And the interesting story, and Jake's listening to this, right, with headphones right now, but the interesting thing is to watch the joy, the pride in the craft, so that when he has headphones and he's watching this waveform, and he'll extract me telling the story that I've told 20 million times on the podcast. Like, "Dad, I'm taking that out. If you talk about the fish stinks from the head down one more time, I'm going to go crazy, and the listeners are going to hate you, and they'll stop listening." So he'll make all the creative decisions, which I have surrendered totally to him, and he'll execute notes that a guest or myself has said, "Hey, I said something bad about Tim, and I don't want that in the show." So I trust his taste and his judgment, but seeing him delight over the craft of audio editing is really cool because sound is such a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Before we started rolling, I was telling you all about this phasing because I started booming the guest and I would hold the handheld and I mixed it wrong and I gave him a composited track. Is that what you call it? Would you?
Yeah.
Right?
A comp track composite.
The comp
Yep.
track. And so in hindsight, we just talked about this yesterday. I said, your dad messed up. I should have balanced the two tracks separately, spit out a wave, and given that to you.
Right.
But what's fun is having a process together where it's like Tuesdays we edit, Thursdays he assembles, and then we'll do a mix, and we'll check it, and we have like a system of file naming. So this process is just between the two of us.
That's great.
But it really works and helps.
Yeah, and the podcast space has really exploded in the last several years. So it's great that you have it down to a very streamlined process.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
The streamlined process, and we bank a bunch of, like, we're recording this, it's May of 2024. It'll be out in maybe 3 years.
That's a big bank.
Yeah, April 2027. Yeah.
Right.
No, so thank you for asking. You can tell I get excited. And then my daughters they're twins. They're both 23. And Gabby moved to New York. We've shot with her on camera because she's an actor. And then Gigi now works at Saatchi in the business, which we never thought she would want to do, but an opportunity arose. She did an internship. At the end of the internship, they go, hey, we want to hire you. So we've done a couple of projects where Jake was assisting me, Ben was on camera, my wife wrote and directed, Gabby acted,
Amazing.
and Gigi was there for support.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a few years ago, but we were all there. And then last year we did one where 5 of us, but Gabby was in New York. I wanted to fly her in just for the family affair.
Wow. That's great.
That was a long story, but you
I appreciate it.
touched
Thank
my
you.
heart asking.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
answer. And what you said with your daughter, getting that opportunity, being an intern and then getting hired, that is very much what can happen and does often happen here. An internship can lead to a full-time position. It's really just proving yourself. Some of it's hazing. I remember I mixed this show called Better Call Saul, and it was
Better Call Saul, of course.
6 seasons over the course of 8 years. So
Bob Odenkirk, one of the nicest people.
guy, very funny.
Yeah.
But I bring this story up because one of the PAs, Ariel Levine, during the first season, she delivered lunch, and she did it with gusto. She did it passionately, not compassionately, passionately. And what do I mean by that? She would label everybody's food, color code, this and that, just nailed it. Now, it seems like an innocuous little detail. She's now a co-executive producer, or at the end was the story editor, because she crushed that one simple thing that you would think, well, why do that? It's the little things.
Nice.
And she did the little things really well,
Totally
and then everybody saw the potential.
If you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly.
There you go.
Do it right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Now, the two of you worked on Ozark together.
We did do Ozark, but I wasn't with Tim yet. But we are now more recently a team, even though we've known each other for decades, literally.
Yeah.
But yes, I worked on a show, Ozark, with my partner who's now retired. So
Gotcha.
I had so many nightmares from watching that.
a dark show, great show.
We love that show, and it seems like they really shot in the Ozarks?
They did the pilot, and then they shot a lot of B-roll and stock footage, but it was actually done in Atlanta.
Oh,
series
okay.
in kind.
But still on location at a lake.
Absolutely, yes.
So I was just going to ask, and you can pick another show, but I wanted to know some of the challenges of any location shoot where, like if you shoot in Florida, southern Florida or in the Caribbean, it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And your coverage may not match visually.
Exactly.
What is the oral equivalent of some of those challenges?
I can tell you exactly. And by the way, just as a little side note, Tim and I are going to mix Jason Bateman's next show called Black Rabbit, which is being shot currently in Brooklyn
wonderful.
right now. He plays
Will he come into the mix?
He does. He is an executive producer and gives notes on the mix, for sure.
I heard he's a real stickler for detail.
He knows his stuff. He is very technical. He pretends that he's not, but he is. He knows the terminology and the lexicon of what we're doing, And
Actors make super directors, by the way.
he's a great director. He loves to do the oneer.
Yeah.
And he jokes on his podcast that it's because he's lazy, but he's not. It's very well choreographed. But to your point, that show is shot in Atlanta, and Atlanta has cicadas. And cicadas have a
Right.
very loud, obnoxious...
It's like a June bug.
Right, it is. But imagine coverage where sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So calling back to
Is there a
audio-
filter? A
we can.
cicada, or there's a, you add
there are
cicada?
ways of one of the picture editors, Cindy Malo, has this great expression. She says, "Let the defect become the effect." So we
Ooh,
lean in.
wait.
Let the
let's
defect
pause on that.
Let the defect become the effect.
become the effect.
So what that means is, in music parlance, let's say you have distortion. Lean into it. Let's just hail distortion as art.
And grunge was born.
Embrace it.
Embrace
Yeah.
it. So the cicadas, we could minimize it. We couldn't eliminate it. So we leaned into it and said, well, let's add more cicadas. Let's make it a story point. Lead it almost as a score element, like tension. So we let that defect become an intentional effect. But other scenes where it wasn't as harmonic in content, I was able to notch out or minimize through noise reduction, gentle use of noise reduction tools to mitigate the cicadas. Because
And are you pitching that philosophy to Mr. Bateman in the room, like, Jason, we
Yes.
have a problem, but we have a solution?
Yes, absolutely, real time. And he's very open to these kinds of things. Jason doesn't get into the weeds in terms of, well, that gun, that's not an accurate gun because you have 14 tracks of cannon and howitzer and this. He's just, make it bigger. Or that music cue, I don't really think that's the appropriate melody here or appropriate tone that we're trying to sell. Let's try an alt on that. So he's much more broad stroke, and maybe through the duration of an hour show, maybe he has 7 to 10 notes. Whereas
That's minimal.
That is pretty minimal. Picture editor will have a page and a half, and then maybe the showrunner will have a few, and other people that would weigh in from MRC, the production company, and Netflix would have their representatives. It was. We had challenges where weather, environment would get in the way. Sometimes rain, not rain. Where we would audio spackle rain to cover the sections that didn't have rain, so it was a little more consistent. I had a very good dialogue open with the production sound mixer. His name was Flip Barrero, and he would send me dailies of troublesome scenes. So he's like, well, we're shooting next to a babbling brook. Is this going to be a problem? Do I have enough level here? Before doing days worth of that location. So
I'm sorry, and that dialogue was with the sound recordist on location?
yes. He would send me actual examples of the dailies. So if they had to be in a location for 4 days, he's going to be like, here's the first day. Oh, we screwed. Are we good? Can you get this out? Can you work with this?
Oh, wow, that's smart.
Yeah. So we had a very good ongoing dialogue.
That's like being offensive, and as opposed to defense, where
Right.
you're fixing
Yes.
it in post. You're being offensive.
That's exactly right.
And taking a proactive, like, what can we do? Is this going to work?
Yeah,
I
I
wish
love
more
that.
production mixers did that.
Me
Some
too.
people did that.
And he was great, and was involved in the location scouting and would bring up problems. It's often
Larry, wait a minute. In my popular book, Commercial Directing Voodoo, 20 years of filmmaking experience for $10 on Amazon. I say, like, if you could, we don't take the sound people to the tech scout.
right, and you should.
So you as a director have to have a keen ear.
right.
And how many times have I seen the location and Google Earth it and go, well, it's in the flight path of Van Nuys Airport.
So smart.
And so the 11:23 a.m. Southwest flight to Albuquerque is going to ruin the comedy dialogue that I'm making a living off of.
That's
in this
fantastic.
period piece, it's supposed to be in the 1800s.
Right, we
Great.
can't-
Never
we can't
mind
have
the
that.
planes in the back.
I have had that
Or the
happen.
405 freeway.
Yes.
Is- Like, there was a great location, and I scouted, and it was perfect. Backyard pool, big backyard, staging area for the gear. And I was a little suspicious because I Google Earthed it. I go, well, maybe, the retaining wall, it's on a hill. Maybe it'll be fine. Yeah. And I go, and it's like, okay, I could deal with this. But it's that, it sounds like a river.
Yes.
It sounds like and it's constant. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be in the day. The day is actually, the cars go faster. It's not as good as rush hour. Rush hour is quieter.
That's true. You're right. It's like a parking lot.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
trust
yeah.
me, every location.
Keep
And
been through this
then
rodeo. Yeah.
The helicopter goes over.
Yes.
The traffic helicopter goes over the 405. And the husband and wife are there. And they must have been getting a divorce because there was tension. So I say to them, hey, the helicopter, and she wanted to rent the place to our production. She goes, oh, that's no. And the guy goes, are you kidding? It's every other hour.
Oh, wow.
He was kind of naive to the, but he just spit out what he thought. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't risk there being the traffic copter over a major freeway in LA for this. And so we had to scramble and find a new location.
It's hard. This city is very challenging because you mentioned flight paths, freeway. If you're shooting in front of a fountain, or the ocean, that's a whole other challenge, right?
If you have we were working on a project once where there was a Cessna that would always be flying over. And certain planes like that, prop planes, have a very specific brrr, like the sound, and it's like a Doppler effect. So it's pitching down, it's going brrr, like over the time. Yeah. So it's not something you can just notch out because it's constantly changing pitch. So it's a lot harder to remove.
What is notching out?
Notching mean like an equalizer. You're taking that frequency
savvy,
and you.
But tell the listener.
Yeah, you take that frequency and you basically squashing that one frequency. Like if you have if there's like a light buzzing and you have a certain tone to it, you can usually pretty much notch those out. You can take that one frequency and hit it.
And you use a filter,
it's an equalizer.
A multi-band equalizer?
Very surgical.
Yeah.
So it's
whereas like an airplane that's constantly changing, it's going down in pitch. It's hard to catch that and ride that all the way down. It's hard to.
Are you editing a lot to picture, or just a soundscape?
Well, the editors of picture, their sound editors will be editing, of course, to picture, and then I'm mixing what they give us, in a sense. Sometimes to picture. Oh, always to picture. Always. And then sometimes we're re-editing on the stage at times. We do that too. We'll let's change this up. Let's reorganize this a little bit.
Hey, it's me, Jake, the editor of the show. If you're thinking of joining this year's Filmmaker Retreat in Joshua Tree, well, get off your ass and sign up. It's September 26th through 29th, and J Tree is a gorgeous place to recharge your creative juices. We're down to the last few spots. Save yours at commercialdirectingfilmschool.com. While you're there, check out my dad's buttload of online courses. Okay, back to the enthralling interview.
At this point in your career, this is a serious question. Let's say you were doing some effects editing, and you see a Cessna. You go, Cessna, and you go right to that decibel. You know exactly where to go in your toolkit and go Cessna remover.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they're all different frequencies, so it'd be hard to know where to go. But I'm at the point now where I can, certain tones, if I hear it, I get an equalizer up, and I pretty much know right where to go. Yep. Like right where visually on the display, I kind of know right where to grab and pull the frequencies down. So I'm getting better at that. That's 25 years of figuring that out.
10,000 hours ago. Same thing. The cicadas, I know they're in that kind of upper frequency, 2.5, 3.5 kilohertz. Yep. Go to the notch filter and kind of surgically remove that. Now, it's funny you mentioned that there's a component, a part of this plugin that Todd AO makes, Absentia, that has Doppler removal. So you can actually...
that helps. That thing
does
I was talking
help.
about. Yeah.
It kind of tracks about 85% of the single engine prop removal, where in the past, as Tim said, it shifts over time. You'd have to sit there and try to notch out as it's passing. And this kind of tracks it. The follows it and removes it.
That's a good segue to what are your thoughts about AI in your work field? Because I know like Adobe has an AI enhancer, and it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And it's good enough, but we know that good enough can suck. So, I believe that we're the tastemakers. We're the ones that have to make choices.
Sure.
So that tool is there, but I mean, it's not finessed enough.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
We can speak to this if you want.
If I may, like for example, sound effects editors, like people who build ambiences, like backgrounds, so there's air and birds and bubbling brook, things like that. AI is definitely getting better at that kind of thing where you can say, okay, here's a scene of a mountain with some, birds and a bubbling brook and some wind. Create that, and it kind of will.
So now, like a generative fill version of audio.
Yeah, it will, and it's not perfect as of now, but it's going to get exponentially ridiculously good over time. So we get layers of so imagine that one layer of doing backgrounds. And then you get another layer of now we're going to, okay, every time you see that footstep hit on camera, add a footstep. So maybe there'll be an AI that will add a footstep for Foley.
There wasn't, but you just gave someone listening the idea.
No, people are working on that. Yeah, so it's so things like that. So you have footsteps, you have background. So that's just the editorial side of it. I can imagine that's gonna ruin some people's work, some people's jobs. And the fortunate thing so far, knock on wood, with mixers is that we are kind of the liaison of getting that material to the filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So we're that intermediate piece where we have to sculpt it all with the filmmakers in mind, So luckily, hopefully, we're a little more safe on that regard, but we'll see.
I think they're just tools that are powerful that can be useful. For me, as a dialogue mixer, I have a couple of really good AI tools that are better at discerning noise from signal. So intended signal, meaning the dialogue spoken voice, separating the unwanted noise. They're much better than the old traditional methods of trying to sample a little bit of the noise and try to remove the sampling, because it was always the baby with the bathwater. You would always lose some of the, what you intended.
That's what I'm hearing with the auto enhance.
So the AI tools
words
for
are
audio,
clipped and it sounds unnaturally
very glitchy.
close.
Yeah, but really good AI tools are managed, with a human touch and a light touch, very good at separating noise from signal. And so, again, there's no auto, you don't push a button and let's have that auto mix, because it doesn't have the taste. It doesn't. It's very subjective doing what we do. And as Tim said, interacting with the client, that won't be replaced, I don't believe. But there are tools that are powerful more in the downstream sort of thing, mixing M&Es, a music and effects pass. Mm-hmm. So for foreign, you can take, Robert De Niro, who doesn't know how to speak, let's say, Spanish, and take his voice, a very small sample of his voice, and input it and have AI generate his voice speaking Spanish pretty flawlessly. In addition to visually, as you probably know, have the lip sync match the words of the
I've
language
seen those.
he never spoke.
Yeah, so they're working on that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I want to say it might have been there was a Val Kilmer documentary. It's about he and his son, who went to school a stone's throw away with my Jake. They used AI to maybe fill in some gaps of Val's voice, because he has a throat cancer.
Yes.
I think that was the documentary.
I believe
Could
you're
be
right.
I'm mixing a few together, but I don't find anything wrong with that.
Sure, as long as permission is granted, as long as
it's helping the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's someone that's past, an actor or actress, and you're repurposing their voice, as long as permission and payment is arranged, and then that's fully bought off on, then I don't see that being a problem. As long as, you know what I'm saying? As long as it's not someone scraping their voice and using it without permission or payment.
Yes, and that comes into line, obviously, with like the strikes and the things that have happened recently with, getting the permission from actors that they won't be, whether allowed to have their voice done with AI or not for localization.
Or paid for it.
Paid for it for localization, So so if you get a Morgan Freeman, for example, you got, is he okay if you use AI to create a sound-alike of Morgan Freeman? You could, if he waves the wand on that and says, go ahead, or gets paid, perhaps that would be okay if that works with him. But
my concern is for rank and file actors and voiceover artists to be kicked to the wayside to use it. There's a tool, someone was in my office and goes, hey, watch this. I can do a scratch voiceover track. He spoke into his iPhone and then changed it to, an Australian woman, and it read the dialogue and he could give it notes.
Oh.
And that, like when sampling in music first came out, there were these great works of art that took a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and whatnot, and made some great stuff. But no, it was ripping other people off.
I have an app on my phone. I've done jokes with my wife. I'll send her a video of my voice. I'll turn it into Barack Obama. And I'll send her a voice going, hey, baby, saying things inappropriately to her. But it's all in the Barack Obama voice. And it's
hey, whatever you two do,
that's our thing. We do that. Sometimes it's Barack, sometimes it's Joe Biden. How we're feeling the day.
Yes.
Well, I think we are all aligned. And Larry, you said something when I first came in about just that experience, being in the room and working with people. And if we can remain the arbiters of taste and add does a magic spark happen when we're all in the room with our clients, our directors, our team, does some magic come out of it that AI isn't going to algorithmically come up with?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We're going to always require the human involvement. I don't think machine learning, large language modeling, and all those kinds of things, which are really repurposing, regurgitating, and reformulating our work anyway, human work anyway. But I don't think it can reconstruct, this is just my opinion, in a way that is as tasteful or as desired by what the filmmaker wants.
Or spontaneous.
Or spontaneous. Like it can create things that, as Tim said, give it a description, here's a mountain, here's a babbling brook. It can conjure that, just as I'm sure visually, right? Photoshop has its generative fill, and I'm sure there are other tools in filmmaking that I'm unaware of that can do the same thing, right? Visual effects, I would imagine. At some point.
There's tons
But
of stuff.
it's going to be from the machine's point of view, right? It's kind of not, what's the word, sentient? I don't even know. It's not a thinking vessel yet. So I still think we need that human organic touch. I mentioned I had watched some viewer reels on your site and behind the scenes, and you have this vibe and you have a way, with a sense of humor, putting people at ease. You talked about how that rain shoot, not losing your cool, that kind of thing, but using humor, right? And you have a background in stand-up, I believe.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Larry. I've been in remission for many years, but occasionally
I apologize.
it will flare up.
Pick a scab? I apologize. But that groundwork that you have coming from comedy, you use that as a tool, as an enhancement, if you will, in your job as a director, right? In pitches and breaking tension and being a team leader, getting everybody together. Like sense of humor is a critical thing.
It helps. Some people lead with the carrot, and some people lead with the stick.
Right.
I'm kind of pulling from both. I beat people with a carrot. That's how I lead.
I like that. Very good.
That's new material.
It's very good. So do you see AI doing that? I don't see AI doing that. Like, how would it solve that kind of problem? It just seems like it's very task-oriented.
It's a little jib-jab to me right now.
Jib-jab, right.
Remember that we all wanted to be an elf, and we put our family photos up, and our whole family's dancing, and everybody had the same reindeer song or whatever it was.
That's right.
And God bless the jib-jab people. It was amazing when it came out.
Yes.
So I think we're in a moment with AI where we're infatuated like we were with jib-jab in the beginning. I didn't get to ask about your Paisley Park years.
Oh,
Tim. Well, how was that? How did you get in there?
So I was there in the late 90s, and I was there. I started
that was the height.
I was there when he had just become the symbol, the name of the symbol. He literally just did that about a month before I'd started working there. And so they were all wrapping their heads around that whole thing, So, so I was there, and I always joked that I was there for about 3 or 4 years, but I always joked that it was like dog years because I lived there, I slept there, I took my showers there, I did laundry there. I was there 110 hours a week. Like literally, I didn't see my family. I had a girlfriend that I never saw, and it was a great experience.
And just recording all day long, just music.
I started off there kind of like how Dawn was saying earlier. You start off as like a receptionist. So I started off as actually literally like a night receptionist there. And then I worked in becoming an assistant engineer.
But you knew someone, or?
Well, I went to recording school in Minneapolis. And
I actually know that. What's it called?
Hennepin Tech.
I actually know Hennepin Tech.
You do? Okay.
From my reality television days, we did a story on it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
A failed pilot.
Yeah.
But the school was great. I do know that school. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I went straight. In fact, I didn't even graduate from there. I was on my last semester, and I got the job at Paisley Park. And so I couldn't even graduate because I just had to just go. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave and do this, which was the right decision.
Were you a fan?
Yeah, actually I was, but
you said that a little.
Because I was in all sorts of different music and everything.
I was Huba Skank or something.
I was liked, I was into metal and everything else, but then I liked Prince too.
Yeah.
So then when I went there, like I said, I went there straight from school and lived there. But again, I started as like a night receptionist, worked to an assistant engineer, becoming a staff engineer eventually. And the thing is, an engineer for Prince, you're not just an engineer. You're also you're getting popcorn. You're kind of like his personal assistant in a lot of ways too. So you wear a lot of hats. You're kind of night security too for the facility. Because Paisley Park is a giant facility, and when it's just you in the building with him, you're kind of security too. And so it's a great experience. So yeah, we worked with Prince. We did Stevie Wonder there, a lot of other artists, and yeah, it was fantastic.
And what made you? Where were you when you go? I got to get out of here.
Oh well,
this is too much.
Great question. That's a good question. So at one point, he almost went. I can say this because he almost went bankrupt at one point, and so he laid off most of Paisley Park in '96, and a lot of us moved out either to New York or Los Angeles, and so a bunch of us came out here. And conversely, some of us that worked together all went to POP Sound that Dawn mentioned earlier.
Here we go.
Look
Back
at that,
in.
bringing it back.
Keller, Ray Honfelt, some other people that were all engineers at Paisley Park. We all worked together. We all moved together. Actually, I worked at a studio in Hollywood called Ocean Way. It's a music studio. And I worked there momentarily when I first moved here. And then I found out about post-production. It's like, well, this is really cool. I kind of like this. And I just had a kid at the time, so I'm like, this is banker's hours too. I foolishly believed that. But so yeah, I got into the post side of things and I grew into that. And then, yeah. So I'm still in the music industry in a sense. I do a lot of music to picture. So I still work on a lot of music. Probably we just did a Lady Gaga live concert film.
Oh, wonderful.
Just like literally about a couple weeks ago.
And nothing triggers you? Like you don't hear a Prince synth beat from the 90s and go,
no. Oh, it was definitely, there are stories. I could sit if we had a beer sometime. Oh my God. Yeah. But yeah, it was a crazy experience for sure. Because here's the thing, you're an engineer there, but you're also, you work around the clock. You don't know when he's going to be there or when he's not going to be there, but you're kind of on call all the time. Plus I was working on other sessions.
And I heard there's no clocks and they pump in oxygen. There's
no
corners.
But then he'd decide at 2 a.m, okay, we're going to throw a party. We're going to have a party. So he'd get all of his guys, all of his, his security people to go down to the clubs in downtown Minneapolis and scoop up all the girls and the people and everything and have them all come out to Paisley Park. They'd get out there about 2:30 in the morning and we'd have a party till about 7 a.m. And it would go like literally all night long. And then knowing that I got to be back into a session at 10 a.m. The next morning. And where he would be at that point, he may be home, he may be in, you just never knew. So and when I say helping out a party, like I'm literally setting up, chips and moving. Right. Like security blankets.
Hanging
joke.
Banners.
I was, I was like Swiss, I was the Swiss Army knife. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
What a great history.
Oh, yeah. It's the greatest boot camp ever.
Larry, how about you? How did you get into this world?
I went to Emerson College in Boston and came out here, and I had not studied sound at all in college.
But Emerson is kind of a mafia.
It is. You're right. There is definitely a Boston Emerson mafia out here, collection of people. And I had interviewed and met with some of them. I was very persistent. Now, there was no internet back then. I would get a job by looking at the back of the Hollywood Reporter and calling, and I came out here with a one-way plane ticket. And I had no audio experience other than recording in bands and things like that. I played in bands. But I had a background in radio and film. And I kind of got from the back of the Hollywood Reporter, a job as a runner. And I was
Wait, let me interrupt. Were you in college? Were you ever on air?
I was.
I can tell.
Yes, 88.9 WERS. Or our other radio station, carrier radio station, 64 AM WECB. Yes, I did.
You didn't talk like that.
No, of course not. No, but I did have a bad Boston accent, believe it or not. And that was kind of beaten out of me taking voice and articulation classes at Emerson, which was very helpful because you want kind of a neutral accent when you come out here.
You went to Hollywood.
Yes, exactly. But, I came out here and I had a job as a runner, which was an entry-level job, and I was delivering tapes at the time at a post facility, Pacific Video, which later became Laser Pacific. Some called it Lazy Pathetic, but it was a great facility. And they had an audio sweetening stage, and I watched and hung out what was being mixed. And I was a runner for Dick Clark, and so I would hang out, and they were doing bloopers and practical jokes. They were doing the American Music Awards, and I said, I want to do that job. That's really cool. I know I didn't study this in 4 years of college, but it's similar to what I knew about audio, mixing bands and radio. Mm-hmm. So I kind of made a little pivot there, just as Dawn did, and followed through and became a recordist. Was that for a couple of years, and then eventually a sweetening mixer, and eventually a re-recording mixer. So everybody has their own unorthodox, unique path to get there.
Yeah. And in your case, learning what you learned in college helped.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would say any experience can enrich, like like I said, you had the background in stand-up. Maybe it was in remission, but you could draw from that, being comfortable talking with people. Me, college, networking, living on your own for the first time. I worked shooting video for a gentleman named Max Muchnick, who later started a show, Boston Common, and then later, what was the famous show? He's Will and Grace. But I could tell, even in college, he was very astute and creative and, knew what he wanted to do, very driven. So I was surrounded by a lot of people, but I could draw from all those experiences, having video editing experience. A lot of that was kind of related to what I did with audio. So, it was useful.
It was wonderful. Is there anything I didn't ask you all that you wanted me to ask or thought I might ask? Yeah. Dawn, you have notes.
Yeah.
Dawn is one of the more prepared
I got the
guests.
notes.
I have no notes. I'm sorry. Larry and I just waltzed in with our,
Earlier, we touched on
swagger.
the internship aspects of breaking into a place, and I just wanted to shout out. We're working with Ryan Reynolds' nonprofit, which is called Group Effort Initiative, and that's how we were able to find our current intern Jalen, who's sitting in the booth watching.
Hey, Jalen.
Shout out
So
Jalen.
if kids want to
Get
look,
that cat out of here.
check out. That's a great resource, and I believe you have to be. It's only for people based in Los Angeles, but they help place people in jobs in the entertainment industry who are looking to just get that foot in the door. So it's really important. Do anything you can do. Seek out companies like that. Go to events like, AICP for the commercial world. If you're trying to crack into that world, save up a few ducats and try to get in there, and you're going to meet the people that you want to meet. Talk to everybody you can talk to. Just, make new friends wherever you go and keep in touch with friends wherever you go because, all of us, it came full circle for me. I'm lucky enough to work with people that I started out my career with. And a lot of times those are the friends that help you get that next job. So it's really important to network and keep track of people.
Send me the link, or I can Google it, and I'll put it at jordanbrady.com with this blog for those listening on any podcast platform. Still, the links actually show up now on the Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff. But I'll put it on my website too. Good Effort.
Group Effort Initiative.
Group Effort.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So the maximum effort, I think, of
Yes,
Ryan Reynolds. So
of
this
course,
is group
legendary.
effort.
Yeah.
That'll be a great resource. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for me, Larry?
Sorry,
I know you have a bunch.
monopolized. Yeah, no, I'm fascinated. So you enjoy doing commercials. You have come from also the documentary space. How about narrative filmmaking? How does that scratch an itch that you want to do more of? Long form, for instance? Yes, I did. I got into commercials through doing an indie film narrative. It was a mockumentary, basically a country Spinal Tap. Nice. And we had great sound, by the way, great sound. And Sheryl Crow did some of the score, and we put a band together, and they went around the country. Amazing.
It was a fake band. We had a blast.
That's great.
And so I have a sequel in the works 25 years later. Because a lot of the people that were in the movie were either stars then or are still stars now, and they all want to do it.
That's great.
But I did 3 other features after that, and all critical flops. So I don't really have, and I was a hired gun, I should say.
Right.
And they came out. They had theatrical releases. I still get small checks from a couple of them, but I don't have the desire to be hired to spend a year and a half or 2. Oh my gosh, I saw Planet of the Apes, or the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, whatever the new one is.
Yeah.
Visually stunning. And I saw a Q&A with the director, and he was saying, it was like 4 years.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That you're doing, and my hat is off. I was in awe of the craftsmanship, the storytelling, like everything about it. Yeah. But I was like, I don't have, my ADHD says stay in your lane with commercials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're great at it. I was just wondering, I similarly feel the same way about streaming. I love that length, for me it works, and it's a longer thing. But features, I don't know that it would have the, save for the occasional feature, to do that as a full-time thing because of the process, the time frame.
It just takes so long.
It takes so long, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well.
And that's one thing I like working on television than
Yeah.
with you too, because it is a different dynamic. And
Yeah,
it's
once it drops and once it airs, it's okay.
great.
There's a sense of finality.
Yes.
When it's over, and what I imagine you would both like about television series is it's like a feature. It's a long form project, but it's in digestible chunks.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
And we don't perseverate over the details as much. It's not that it's a compromise medium necessarily. It's just that sometimes I think you can over polish something. You know what I mean? Where you're polishing the hair off of it, basically. It's almost like an overproduced punk song, if you will. Right?
Good way of putting
You
it.
know what I'm saying? So in a film, it's test screened, it's audience tested and surveyed, and it becomes by committee. In my opinion. And so sometimes it gets diluted and you can't have the initial vision that you wanted to. Too many cooks, too many chiefs, insert whatever metaphor you want. And for me, it's just a little bit too much control, too much oversight, whereas we have a little more creativity.
That's a good way of putting that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The social media content that I put out, I had to tell myself, just ship it. Like,
Right.
get it's disposable entertainment.
Yep.
It's good for a day or two, and then they want more.
You gotta feed
but
the beast.
I still like if the sound isn't right.
Yeah.
Even like the color grade on something socially, I'll put it up and then watch it back and go, no, I got to that's not good. So
That's
there's
interesting.
different mediums have different levels of, I forget the fancy P word you used to use. When you said like polishing a hair.
Polishing it. Polishing, massaging the hair off of it.
Yeah, massaging. You can't massage the hair off of it, but it's still got to have a little massage.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You have kind of a benchmark of you're not willing to let it go, even though you got to get it out there, but you want to have it kind of go through your polish pass, if you will. Gentle turtle wax.
Well, that leads. What kind of turtle wax?
Gentle
Turtle wax.
Yes.
I love it. This is how we conclude the show. First of all, thank you all for having
Thank
me here.
you.
and hosting.
Thanks for having
Shout
me. Great
out to the team behind the glass, putting it
Yes.
all together.
Michael. Yep.
Michael, how do we all sound good?
No. Okay.
Michael is a handsome man.
He just said
she'll be
Glass.
recording
This-
that.
Hopefully, I won't bump the mic. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I was telling Dawn, and I told my wife the same thing last night. I go, I don't know. I usually just do one-on-one.
Yep.
And I've done teams have come in, or someone's brought a friend, or a director, producer, that kind of thing. But this is a whole new experience personally, and I've really enjoyed chatting.
Likewise.
Me too. Yeah,
had
it was
a
very
great
fun.
flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really good.
If you ever want to have me back,
Oh my God.
Oh,
you're
actually,
great
we
at
got to
should
get
do
the
that.
ladies in here,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Lady mixers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, these guys are the true talent. You didn't need me for a whole
No,
podcast. You
no.
needed Larry
Wonderful.
and Tim.
Donna, I disagree. You are the linchpin to success for this
Absolutely
episode.
true. The glue that binds us together.
And we finally got together on this.
Yes, yes. I'm glad we could nerd out and talk about audio. It's kind of like, as we were saying earlier, audio post is basically the last stop of the train. And a lot of times people don't realize all the different careers you can find in this world, whether you want to be a sound designer, you want to be an editor, you want to record ADR like Michael does. You know, he works with both commercial clients and feature clients, as well as video game clients. So, if, you know, you might not have realized that as a kid coming out of school, this is something that I might be interested in, or you know, work your way up to a re-recording mixer like these guys. And did I miss anything? What other?
No, you
I mean,
were-
you could jump onto the executive side like I did. Be a producer,
this.
be an executive producer, be you know, director, VP, own your own company one day. This guy's still
Take
doing
over the
it.
world. Yeah.
But learn
And
it,
all those
get
different
in.
all those different paths of getting in, like
Yep.
becoming a mixer. It's like some people are editors that become mixers. You know,
Or
some
sound
people are
supervisors,
sound supervisors. You know, I restored old films. That's one way that I would get into it. You know, that kind of my background on that too. So
Yep,
you know.
get in, meet people,
Wait, where did
talk
that-
to people.
yeah.
Where did that fit in, Tim?
Though that's where. So when I first started at POP, I was actually doing a lot of DVD work, like remixing older films in surround sound. that were never in surround before.
DVDs for the listeners, a shiny disc.
That disc back when people used to do that. Yeah, so I would restore. Well, we did a whole thing where we restore films for MGM and Paramount, Lionsgate, and so I've restored a lot of older films, in surround, in 5.1 surround, and lately in Atmos.
Oh wow!
So that's kind of another step that helped. The reason I bring that up is because a lot of people, they're sound effects editors or dialogue editors that get into it, and I do some editing. I've definitely edited films, obviously, but also part of my background is hearing all those old films and restoring them, which got me into becoming a re-recording mixer as well. There's a lot of layers on my background. Yeah.
How many times have you heard the Willem scream? Restoring old movies.
Yeah. Now it just pokes you in the ear. You hear it anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like jumps out of you.
100 times? 100 films?
Easily. Oh, yeah.
Hundreds.
And have you ever used it?
I have.
Yep. Yeah. I've heard the original recording, which actually was a run. It was.
I would love to have a copy.
Right, I have that. I think we shared that, right? It's take 3.
Yes.
A run of doing that recording. Yeah.
I'm going to steal
very
Dallas
iconic.
Taylor.
Oh,
is,
yeah.
do you know Dallas
Yes.
Taylor? I just had lunch with him the other
Is it
day.
Dallas Audio?
His podcast, 21,000 hertz.
Oh, yeah, 20,000
Yeah,
hertz.
yeah, yeah.
20,000
Yep.
hertz. It is such a well-produced podcast. It's probably the best produced
great.
podcast.
Yeah.
I've never met him, but I know who he is.
He's a
and it's really
wonderful
cool.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did a whole episode on the Willem scream.
Oh, wow.
That's
Gotta
very
hear that.
cool.
I digress. Okay,
Yeah.
here's how
Anyway.
we end. And we'll go speed round with each of you. The show is called Respect the Process. What does that mean to you, Tim?
Respecting the process of just literally of how we're creating all this as a team and how we all work together as a group and as a collaboration. That's kind of how I've always seen it. It's a collaboration. It takes a whole crew to put all these things together.
There is no wrong answer.
Yeah.
I'm not judging.
Yeah. But that's the way I always seen it.
Yeah.
The process to me is it's not just me. It's
Yeah.
not just Larry or just Dawn. It's the entire collaboration of everybody together that makes the soup. And that soup is literally all those different ingredients, and it's got all the right people to get together to create that process. So that's, to me, that respects the process. You get all the right people and the right minds behind it.
That's a great answer.
That is a great answer.
Larry?
I like the name Respect the Process. I've heard before trust the process, and I think respect the process is even better because, to kind of piggyback off of what Tim said, similarly, clients need to trust us. We're the professionals. We've been doing it for a long period of time. Yeah. Know that it's going to get shaped, and what we end up with creatively is going to be this great product. And to get there, you're going to see some sausage making that might be a little ugly. You don't want to watch what's going on during that process, but respect it. It will come out. We know this. We've been doing it a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's gratifying for us when we marry up. We work individually pre-dubbing. I'm pre-dubbing dialogue on my own, not putting in music. He's pre-dubbing backgrounds on his own, meaning kind of getting an internal balance.
Yep.
We will marry up linearly, and then he will put in Foley, I will put in music, and then it starts sounding like a show. We're like, that's respecting the process. Trust us. We know from the beginning of this on day 1 to the end of this on day 3 or 4 or 5, however long that is, by the end of the process, you will have a finished, well-rounded, balanced soundtrack. And the clients should entrust us with their baby. And that's, to me, respecting the process.
Another great answer. 2 for 2.
Excellent
Dawn,
answer,
bring us home. No pressure.
Pressure's on.
Well, I was thinking part of respecting the process maybe is just being open to learning about the entire process first. We're here in our audio lane, but I think it's interesting to know what happens before the sound comes to us. Learn as much as you can about production. And then when you're in the room with all these different folks at the end, when the mix, the grand finale of the mix is happening, you kind of know what they went through. You know what the director went through. You know what the editor went through. And you understand when you hear them talking about their editorial lingo, or maybe there's a music editor in the room or a composer in the room. They're talking music. You have taken the time to learn a little bit about what they do, because we get all of these elements right at the last stop. Mm-hmm. And I think people who have learned about all the different pieces that came together before the audio got to us, I think that's a valuable thing, a valuable tool to have in your toolkit.
Makes you a better filmmaker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, well-rounded. I'm a big fan of that. And it's okay to just listen, You don't always have to be talking. Just get in a room and listen and hear how people operate and soak it all in. Learn as much as you can about all these different possible, that could be a new avenue for someone down the road. They maybe want to switch up what they're doing and go in a different direction because you took the time to investigate all these different stops.
That is wonderful. Thank you for bringing it home, Dawn. And thanks for putting this all together and introducing me to the whole team here. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bravo to us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for coming
A
over.
lot of fun. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Absolutely.
Commercial Directing Film School's mission is to help filmmakers direct commercials professionally. With online courses and in-person boot camps, we demystify the process to get you to the next level, all taught by your accessible mentor, filmmaker Jordan Brady.
True Gentleman Industries. We make commercials.